start this off with a question and answer. As you know, I'm Bobby Hemmitt, visiting from Atlanta to the Warriors in Cleveland, which they say is one of the most, what you said, oppressed cities.
What was it? That was the number one. What was it?
Poorest city.
The poorest city in the country.
They both go together, though. They both go
Poor
together.
and depressed. Yeah.
Depressed and poor, depression, financially strapped, and all that.
Yeah. There's no doubt about it either.
We probably know the reason why, ultimately, because of the black population. That's the bottom line. Because I see some of these, now you know that's interesting, because if this is a poor city, I see some of these houses that white folks live in as some of the rich, some of the biggest mansions in the country.
Yeah.
Ain't that a dichotomy now? You know, you can tell that there's some money in this city based on the houses that's built. When you see the white folks' houses and stuff, you know, it ain't no, you know, we talk about look like miniature castles.
Yeah.
That's right.
So obviously there's a dichotomy going on somewhere. And that's probably how these people keep their money. Yeah, so we want to open it. This brother here is got to go, so he want to ask a question and all, and we'll get him on the camera first. Yeah.
How you doing tonight, bro?
Yeah.
Basically, what you just mentioned was where my mindset was over the last 15 years. With the renewal of the culture, with more technology in the state that we're in right now versus the 70s when we were at our highest peak, with everything matching the music and the politics and getting stronger and stronger. And it seems like since then, since the drugs have came in, there's been oppression. And I've noticed how it's arisen in Cleveland, with this being one of the largest black populations as far as a county. And what has went on over the years with a lot of the science and technology, you have a lot of the Hitler people that came here and worked with the aerospace, be it the Cleveland Clinic and NASA. And you have the cloning, and you have now, where we're at, we have a state of oppression with economics where we don't work, and you don't find the state of black men and the family how you used to 30-some years ago. And basically, if you're not on crack, they have it where you're on some kind of a medication. And they're working us from all ends, and it's like no one never seems to stress the issues of the scientific experiments that go on here.
Well, it's interesting because they start with the medication now in grade school. They got mothers, they got the children on Ritalin. And the children on Ritalin and stuff. When you were telling me about, somebody else was telling me about this, that because I know it's called a violence initiative. They was just talking about doing that. They started, there's a guy named Bregan. He did a special on it at the Slave Theater. White boy, Jew boy, went to the Slave Theater in Harlem, and well, in Brooklyn, you know, and did this thing on the violence initiative on how they don't give the children all these drugs. You see, and so they're starting at a young age, and they say that these, I know in most of the country, they make sure if these children are not on the Ritalin and Thorazine or whatever, they keep the mothers out of their jobs by keeping them down at the school and saying, you know, what you gonna do? Because you know we gotta find, and you know, we gotta do something. And as a result, these mothers have to sign this piece of paper saying it's okay to put the children on Ritalin. You know, so that's one aspect of it, as far as they're starting at a young age to doping people up, and they're doing it all over. Now it's interesting here because they mentioned this in the conscious community knew about it, and I'm quite sure they took steps about it and not put their children on drugs. But the masses of the dead folks, it's a major epidemic, and it's going all around the country. Now they had a program in Atlanta on the radio, and they were saying that They was talking about this violence initiative, and these women are calling and saying that they got their children on all these drugs. So most of the radio stations are set up that they are, even if you think they're black and they're getting out the information, they're all government run. So they got a way to have a black radio station you think is conscious and it's government run. So they would bring up the issue, but they would never really give you no solutions. Like take for instance, they was talking about these drugs, giving these people these drugs in Atlanta. Just in the middle of the radio broadcast, the guy from the drug company called in and was talking about how it's good, these children need these drugs, and it's good and all this. Now she gave him about 12 minutes to speak. My brother called in with the solution and said, well, I had some problem children that I got from my hometown where I'm from, South Carolina. There was 2 children that that my mother's, one of her friends had these problem children. One of the friend's daughter had this problem children. And so they went up to Atlanta for the summer to stay with my brother. He said, and these children was attention deficit disorder, you know, a messed up behavior, problem children, you know, all of this, the whole gamut. He said he just basically took them off of sugar for a month or 2. And he said, and it worked. And she said, well, did the behavior change? She said they became model students.
Wow.
The attention deficit, all of this disorder disappeared. The behavior, you see quail, everything went to normal. And she said, next caller please, and she cut him off. And she let the man come on before and talk almost 12 minutes on how good these drugs were. But when he came with the solution, telling him to get him off the sugar, she said, next caller please, and cut him off.
Black radio.
Black radio station. Black radio station. So they're hitting us on all levels. Something is as sacred as this. And we do know there's 2 things that had to attack, and that goes along with this plight of black America, is they had to attack the music. It's one of the ways also. And you can track the disintegration of the music. You see what I'm saying? And it goes right along with the disintegration of black consciousness, black upward mobility, or whatever. You see what I'm saying? So they had to do several things that they had to do on that particular level. I didn't mention, like I mentioned last night briefly, that this high definition TV, plasma TV, and all of these types of things that they're doing, as far as a brother brought me a 27-inch TV back here in June, and in 1 week I started going blind.
Oh.
And like I said, I had the sister had to take her urine. The sister I'm with now, and take her urine in the morning with the melanin and put it in my eyes in order for my sight to come back. Now, but my point here is they were saying, if you thought the TVs from the 80s and the 90s were bad, where do you get the TVs from 2000 on up? This is 2004, and they're getting real cheap. You can go to Circuit City and get these 27 inches for $199, and you know, going on up and stuff, because now the goal is they got the big flat screens for 5,000,
Right.
1,000. So people have got their eye on that.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they're bringing down the other ones, and the people are buying those.
Yeah.
And all that stuff is, you know, is all a form of the whole mind control and all that type of stuff too. So it's a whole gamut of stuff that is going on in the black community.
Bobby,
Yeah.
can I just say, like, you know, all that radiation that comes that is destroying the melanin is also destroying the reproductive. Like I remember Dr. Africa was talking about that, like the the X-rays or whatever, the radiation settles itself in your pelvic area, and then they got herbal preparations and stuff to wash it out, you know, out of your system. So
Yeah.
like if you got a job, you're in front of the computer all the time, you know,
Yeah, it's being bombarded with like Dr. Deborah Blair calls electric disease. You know, being bombarded with those types of things and stuff like that. Now, it doesn't necessarily affect white folks on the same level because, number one, the low melanin content. You see, so they basically, you know, it's just like any type of really expensive equipment you get. The more expensive it gets, the more delicate it is. You know what I'm saying? Where you can get them little solid state things or whatever, this cheap stuff and bounce it all around. You know, so it's still ongoing on that particular level. But I do believe also too that there was a certain ones that incarnated that are certain ones of the entities that incarnated down here that's above all of that. And they seem to bounce back or go to something with insurmountable odds. They seem to go to another level. You see what I'm saying?
The individual.
The individual. You see what I'm saying? Certain ones. And I think that they sacrificed a whole group of people just to get these ones that were supposed to be the head of the snake to protect them. So the spirit realm has this way to protect a certain group of people that they know that's going to be conducive to bringing forth the information and manifesting a certain amount of, a certain level of energy, a certain level of prosperity or whatever it is, what it's going to take to get us on the next level. And so they don't really, so they got enough people in the decoy level to fill it around with. And although it might look tragic, in actuality, in science, it's not based on the mass, it's based on, you see, the nucleus. So it has a lot to do with that.
You talked about the live pineal glands. I got a two-part question on that. First of all, you saying live pineal, so you saying that they actually have the individual deceased or dying at the time when they consume the pineal gland, so that could be possibly at the hospital.
Probably, or they can basically just no different than they do when they take these organs out. Okay, you know how they take the organs out and the person is dead and they got a certain amount of hours? Yeah. What they say is like 72 hours before it get to a certain level, yeah.
Okay, now, okay, say like if somebody died in your family and you when you know they're 70, 80 years old, they just died, they said natural causes. Okay, when they body get to the morgue and you look on the back of their head and see that they pineal gland removed, is that legal or can you like?
Yeah, I think that the way they do it, I don't think they do it. I think they have a way to do it where they go into the mouth.
Yeah, they go.
Yeah. Go into the nose. It's some movie that they showed like that. That they go into the nose. I think it's in the movie I Come in Peace or something like that. Or some other movie. They go into the nose and do it. You see what I'm saying? And something like that, and that's how it's done. So
yeah, they had a little X-Files last weekend about this guy that didn't have a pituitary gland.
Right.
And what he was doing is he was stealing other people. He's supposed to be an extraterrestrial.
Right, the black guy. Remember how he went into the nose?
Yeah, that's
the black guy.
The hood.
So the tribe from Africa that didn't have the melanin and all that type of thing here. It's the same process. They had that one show, and he went into the nose and did something. Yeah. Whatever. That's how it's done.
Okay.
That's how it's also done. But like I said, most of the people, I'm quite sure this is not for the conscious because most of the people out there doing don't even know what a pineal gland, a third eye is, and that's just a misfortune. But then again, on the other hand, that's also the safety net. Yeah. They are the foot soldiers in our warfare. You know, they put them on the front line to block. And I know it's kind of tragic, but then again, on the other hand, if you're dead, you're not even living anyway. You know what I'm saying? You're not living anyway. The only people that live are the people that's got a certain amount of enlightenment. And that can be from a certain level to a greater enlightenment, but those are the ones that we're talking about that's living. The rest of the people, you got to look at it that way, as casualties of war or spoils of war. But then again, on the other hand, it blocks for us. You see what I'm saying? On one particular app. So on any tragic situation, there's always the flip side. You see, it's always the flip side. You see what I'm saying? The sad part is if the white man had access to the conscious and was doing these sinister things. You see, that would be the sad part. And also, our concentration is not in numbers. You see what I'm saying? It's not in quantity, it's in quality. But it still shows the sinister things that they're doing.
Yeah.
You know, this beast is, you know, it's just that he went a little more advanced in racism than what most people are still stuck in the 60s and thinking it's about whether this man accepted him on a job and he's doing the Frankenstein thing like job. Nigga. You want to sit down, you way past sit down in a restaurant with you know what I'm saying? Or whatever type thing you know, he's in the Frankenstein thing and you still stuck in another era and your concept of racism is can we get along? And don't understand your concept of racism should be, hey, we don't want to be nowhere around you.
That's right.
I didn't pass out enough resumes in this racist town to fill up this whole room. I've actually given out enough resumes to fill up this whole room, and I may have had 3 return phone calls. This man, you talking about tracing back your ancestries, if you from any little small town in Alabama or Georgia, he can get on the telephone and do it in 20 minutes and know how your family tree was and your bloodline, whether you were rebels, whether you were field niggas.
Very interesting.
We talking about trying to find out where we come from. He can do it in 15 minutes. And he can also put a mark on you where you can't get work nowhere. This is one of the most demonistic towns I've ever seen in my life when it comes to how he play ball. And we still stuck on that.
We must, in that case, you gotta, there needs to be a study on what type of black person came here and what type of contributions or something, both spiritually and economically or whatever. Because we know Motown, Detroit, third world country. But when I go to Detroit, the lectures are always, anytime you see Detroit on my lecture, get it because it's always off the chain because there's a certain energy and a certain type of black person. And this would explain the Motown, the Funk Brothers, Elijah Muhammad started out there. Even the Master Farad, when he went to get these people, he went to Detroit. You see what I'm saying? As well as even Henry Ford, who said that the Jews was evil, the international Jew, based on the protocols of Zion. And there was a lot of stuff that went down, you know, on that thing. So my point here is what I'm trying to say is that they got these particular cities. You know what I'm saying? You got some cities where black people fare all right. You know what I'm saying? One of those cities is Atlanta. But see, they did it a certain way in Atlanta. Atlanta is not an industrial town. Most of the people are not native. You go to Philadelphia and you'll see a lot of people from Philadelphia have been there. They've been native. You see what I'm saying? So you know, the people in Atlanta are not native. So this means that this is a sterile type of environment that they can get these people at a certain upper mobile level. Because there's not as much grassroots level because it's a city where people commute in. So when you see these cities where they fare better and stuff like that, it's a certain connection. And usually the people who probably catch the most hell is the ones where they have the city of industry. Obviously, this was some type of industry town at one time.
Greatest location in the nation at one time.
Right.
It's industrial.
So some type of thing like that. No, you go to Pittsburgh, the black people suffer real hard because they had the steel mills there. You know, like they had the car industry in Detroit. So it's got something to do with industry. And I think there's got to be some type of research done to find out and track just exactly the contributions that black people did. You know what I'm saying? Because it's got to be something bad when they've been talking about Cleveland being this hellhole. This was a joke in the 70s amongst white folks. You know, Johnny Carson used to talk about, well, send them to Cleveland or something.
Yeah.
Cleveland came up in the Boys from Brazil movies also.
Boys from Brazil, which is the whole cloning thing of the Hitler thing.
But
I got a copy of it and stuff, which is hard to get now.
Yeah.
It might be on DVD now.
Yeah, Richard Pryor.
And Richard Pryor used to say, exercise in the Cleveland or something. But that was the going lingo. And my mama used to say, my God, every time I look up, it's Cleveland.
yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What is it? So, and which mean I always wanted to come here because of that.
Okay.
But it was popular. But Cleveland was popular on the mass media as being a hellhole. You see what I'm
The
saying?
Wicked Witch from the West is from here. The Wizard of Oz. And trust me.
Yeah. Cleveland.
You know what else, Bob? You dealt with the deregulation of the gas, and I've been with them for 18 years. And I was there when it was one company. And what you said really turned on the light, because when they deregulated in 95 and they sold out, the regular gas company here, what they did is they deregulated it, so they timed the money times how many other companies they got started.
Yeah.
And most of these companies came from, the name of the company here is Dominion, East Ohio Gas.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so what they're doing is they dominated Dominion, they dominated the gas industry, but they had to do the deregulation because they had over half this city off that particular winter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I was dealing with that, saying how we was wishing so hard, because it was a lot of changes. And even now, it's a certain particular energy that you got to produce to stay there.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, and on the flip side of everything bad, you got a great, help. Paul Newman is from Shaker Heights.
Yeah.
So on the flip side,
Holly Berry.
you see of that. You see what I'm saying?
We could do a roll call.
Yeah.
You got a bunch of black folks here that was bad. Some of the baddest black men ever been in America have come out. The writers, Superfly,
Right.
Carl
Darden.
Stokes,
They got
Lanston Hughes.
Mills.
All the entertainers came through here over the years. So they had to cut us down.
And not only just here, but other parts of Ohio.
Yeah.
Cincinnati.
Like Bootsy Collins
I-
in Cincinnati and
I.D. brothers.
Roger Troutman and Zap. Yeah, so you gotta look at
Nancy
that type of
Wilson.
thing. And so they look and they always can tell when a certain amount of talent is coming.
Yeah.
And that's exactly where they go. You see, now the South, they had a lot of talent coming from the South, but the South was always in bondage. So the law, it was already set up under a level. But we're talking about places where you would say those lands where black people migrated out of the South to go to. You see what I'm saying? With industry. And it's got a lot to do with something with industry or whatever the deal here is. You see what I'm saying? Of whatever it is on whether, black people fare a certain way, So it's just, like take for instance, I'm from South Carolina, and the South Carolina got more blacks than any other state. They got whole counties where the blacks outnumber the whites. So they just decided that no blacks will ever be able to rise to political prominence on a certain level in South Carolina. And all like that and all. And they also understood, but I'll tell you another thing also. We also got to look at, because this is a good thing based on the South Carolina situation, that we also have to research. What kind of African migrated to this? Like take for instance in South Carolina, half of the brothers from the Congo, half of black people from the Congo came. You got the Sea Islands in South Carolina, and the Geechee and the Gullah, which is and the only form of magic, because the voodoo, you got in New Orleans, but that comes up through Haiti. But the form of magic, the only form of magic that was actually based on the African juju in this country, basically is the roots out of South Carolina. In that particular aspect. So you got to find out what kind of African. Like take for instance, take for instance, like give you another example. In this town I'm from, Mullins, it's a painting place. It's a strange town, and everybody there has a certain sense of humor. It's almost like you couldn't even live in the town if you couldn't make a person laugh. And my mother would come in and have you dying. So now let me give you an example to go even further. We did some research and found out that that area of South Carolina, and especially that Mullins and all of that particular part, was a leftover part of Atlantis. See, if you go by, see, this is another thing. So the white boy knows all of this. Now, if you go by, if this was all one landmass at one time, and it broke off, then the piece that broke off, whether it's over here, it still had to be a part of the mainland, and it had to be a part of Atlantis. Now, when I first heard this guy, a British occult scholar, Kenneth Grant, out of England, that said that Haiti, he mentioned in one of his books that Haiti was a leftover part of Atlantis. And I heard that, and then later on in 2001, they came up with this thing that Cuba was a leftover part of Atlanta, and it starts coming into play on why they would never put Cuba under sanctions all these years. But yet, they never put the Soviet Union under sanctions. You see what I'm saying? So, we also got to understand that these people are not only mapping out what kind of Africans or what kind of indigenous Native Americans, because we don't want to get out of this African thing as it being the root of everything, because it's not. But what kind of ancient land this was? You see what I'm saying? What is the Native American connection in Cleveland in relationship to black folks here? And why, and do they have certain amount of, like I say, certain amount of mounds, Native American mounds, Native American sites? You see what I'm saying? And what is all that, and why they have to shut down a certain amount of people? So it's certain factors that they do, and it goes beyond just not getting a nigga a job or something like that. It's something that's mystical on that level. It's something that's mystical on that particular level. And they can tell based on what's mystical in this realm or in this area, and based on what talent comes out of this area. You see what I'm saying? What talent comes out of this area. And then what you have to do is you have to track and say, well, let's see what is the biggest star, sports or whatever, to ever come out of Ohio, period. You see what I'm saying? And then you can track and see whether this white boy, it is like Honorable Elijah Muhammad used to say, they study us when we sleeping.
That's true. So true.
That's right.
Always said that.
Jesse Owens came out of here, and Hitler.
And you know, I was getting ready to say, the Spirit said Jesse Owens. Right. Now Jesse Owens is considered one of the first superstars of our race. Jack Johnson, Jesse Owens. You see what I'm saying? These are some of the first ones. So they can track that and say, you know, hey, you never let them forget. You see what I'm saying? That whole thing. And, you know, embarrass Hitler, which is embarrassing the United States, because all that is nothing but a family fight.
Because he was cloning then.
You see, all of that, right. So you got to look at all of these things and factors,
I have a question about just about finances with us and, you know, people who owe us. And it came to mind when you told me about you were from South Carolina.
Right.
My great aunt out of Texas, I went and visited her, and she showed me a picture of the first slave who was in our family that started my great-grandfather's side. She was a woman from Jamaica, and they said that the family was real wealthy, and she was a young lady, about 14 to 15, and somehow she was kidnapped over here. But the point is that she was brought to North Carolina, and the man who, the slave owner, was a Frenchman, and his name was, I think his first name was Prince, and he had children, you know, with her and the other slave women, but his last name was Durham, and the name of Durham, North Carolina comes from him, but he changed all of my maiden name and all the families. He changed our last name to Dura, because my great-grandmother had the whole history, so that we wouldn't be able to inherit any of his wealth. But I just wonder if there's a way that we can still track it, because...
You can. I mean, history is history. You can trace it. You know, that's no, you know, even the name change. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if these people did exist, it's just like when I went to Cleveland. When I first went to Cleveland, not Cleveland, but Denver. I first went to Denver, I said, well, there's something about this town, because it's only 4% black. In the middle of nowhere. And I said, I'm going to learn something about this. Spirit said, you're going to learn something about this before you leave. And come to find out, Denver was started by a black man. By the time, some brother came and gave the whole history at the lecture. And then we have this Denver airport out there with all this mysterious, crazy looking stuff on it. And occult type stuff. So you can't trace that, trace that stuff, yeah.
Right in your face.
So yeah, that would be something to look into.
What do you got to put with the airport?
Yeah, the airport has all this occult symbology. And they have a whole book on it. So you should probably be able to go on the internet and pull off half the symbols in the airport and stuff. Which was interesting because when I was out there, it was literally 1 month after the 9/11 thing in 2001. And they had something like 50-something to 60 Africans working in the whole homeland, checking the bags in the homeland security thing. And I said, this is strange. I said, this is very, very strange. And I said that for the simple fact I said, these can't be students because these are the older Africans in their 40s, some in their 50s. And so they had imported these particular people in. They're real big in Atlanta, dividing up the whole cab thing. It's either the Ethiopians got one part of the cab or the Nigerians. And you would say, well, that's all good, but then again, on the other hand, what's happening is this. Now, Bill Cooper, before they killed him, said that in order for somebody to go under martial law, it will not be the soldiers, just the regular soldiers in America. You be too reluctant to put your mama under martial law. Because you have an allegiance and an alliance to your family than you do the military, black or white. So they said for the whites, because they didn't consider the black, but he said basically they was going to get Russian soldiers. Because they don't have an allegiance, they don't know the people over here, and they just do. So this whole UN thing was a international way for martial law. These are UN soldiers. And what you do, you deploy the other soldiers out. They half of them in Afghanistan, the other half is in Iraq, and soon they're going to be in Iran. You see what I'm saying? Or whatever, maybe Liberia. So most of the people that's occupying the base is Russians. Now it's interesting here because there's a friend named TJ that last week I went and did a lecture with him, Black Mental Illness. And he was in, and he flies out to Vegas a lot. He was in Vegas back, I think it was in September or August. And he saw all these people, and he said, they were speaking Russian. And so he said when he was in the bathroom, there was a guy, and then he went up to the guy and said, "You Russian?" He said, "Yeah." He said, why are you here? He said, "We're here for the insurgents," which is insurgents is uprising. So they got the Russian soldiers that will take over and be able to will execute martial law because they don't have an alliance on an alliance to the people that they're trying to lock down. The other one you got to watch out for, it will be the Africans. Now this is the way it is. I told the people in 1998. Because we don't understand, the Africans that they're allowed to come out of the country are not African. They are British, Arab, French, or whatever people who colonize. And they got that type of mind mentality, and they have been trained since grade school to despise us. You see, so they have no problem. So when I saw this group of Africans doing the whole homeland security, you see, I knew something was going on. You see, so we got this is the way they do when it comes to the war. It's no different than the Indian scouts that used to hunt down the other. You see, and that's more devastating, psychological, to get somebody of your same race to be a policeman over here.
Right. Well, you know what? I want to say one thing. That I have that information. You go on the internet, you can get it because it's color coded. They're going to have for martial law, which is already in place. People from other countries that do not understand English, they're going to be the gatekeeper. They have the red line, the blue line. They color code. You can go right into the internet.
There's a website called something like Countdown to Martial Law. These white folks is tracking this thing too. Because they know that they have sacrificed America and the white, in order to contain us, the Messianic group, they had to sacrifice all the white folks in America that is not a part of those 5,000 elite.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? 5,000 elite. White, other people. And they feel that they have Europe. They don't need the people over here. Like, take for instance, I said a long time ago, if you look at the history of Europe, they didn't mix. The Russians didn't sleep with the British.
Mm-mm.
The Germans didn't sleep with the Irish.
Right.
But over here, if you white, you might have everything in your family. They didn't mix like that. Now, for some reason, they're all mutants to me, but that's not the point. Or hybrids.
Yeah, right.
But that's not the point. Even Patton called the Russians Mongol race or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You see, so my point here is, they call this a cesspool over here anyway. So they say that they can sacrifice these crackers over here, that's spoiled by the fatted cow, just to get the messianic line of the black man in the United States and the black woman.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I just wanted to tell you that, you know, I've been doing my job. I noticed I had this house, it was a double, up and down. They had bunks, like a daycare, and they had 17 people in there that couldn't speak English. And I'm trying to tell them about what's happening with what I'm about to do. They had to get on the phone and talk to somebody. There's 2 houses that I seen like that, and it's down in the Fleet area. That they Russian. They can't speak a bit of English, and they had to get an interpreter. And the guy on the phone said, "Well, I'm the interpreter. You know, tell me whatever you need to be done." And the same guy on that same line with the other house was on the same line. They interpreter.
Yeah, so they're here. And it's and my point here is, if they was begging to bring more soldiers and deploying more soldiers, well, who are occupying the bases over here?
That's right.
It's the UN soldiers, mainly the Russians. You see, so it's you know, some interesting stuff. You know. Give me some questions.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And it may be inappropriate because they said that everybody talked about it yesterday as far as the election and things like that,
Yeah.
but I didn't get to come. And my question was that I just got sick out of my mind hearing on the radio and the TV and everywhere all the celebrities and just how they was just so emphatic about this election. And I said to myself that I was always taught from a little girl that the vote of the people didn't matter, you know,
Right.
that it was the electoral college. They teach it
Yeah.
openly, you know, in grade school. So I said to myself, if these are all these, you know, professionals and, you know, how is it that, you know, they don't know this and why are they still promoting?
Well, number one, it was basically, I talked about this last night. They went to Russell Simmons and Puff Daddy and other celebrities like that, Drew Barrymore, black and white, and they got all these people to vote, the young people voter turnout, and they got the biggest voter turnout in the history of the country.
That's right.
Of a certain age demographic. So, when it come to pass, basically what it was is the whole thing was to get, it was a mass registration for the draft. And that's the way it was able to do it. They registered people for the draft by registering them to vote. Because although they had it all set up that they wanted to do the draft, they had this big problem. They haven't been able to take an accurate count of black people since 1980. And so the 1990 census was a failure. And the 2000 was a disaster. So, especially when it came from black men from 18 to 45, they just don't know where they are. So as a result, they registered to vote. They registered all these people to vote, and that was basically to sign them up for the draft. You see what I'm saying? To sign up for the draft. And so when it go down and all, they got a full-fledged group of people. Because they registered them on the college campuses. They registered them on, and not only that, this was the first time ever they registered felons. Now, you're supposed to be a felon, you should be able to, wasn't supposed to be able to vote. They registered felons and stuff because they got all them. One of the other keys here is that they've already stepped to the people in the prison and told them that if you got 40, 50 years, get your ass in a rack on the front line. And they say, as a matter of fact, some of the prisoners have already shipped out. You see what I'm saying? Yeah.
Unseen.
Well, you know, if I got 40 years, I didn't figure that's a good deal. I get over there.
You might survive.
Yeah, might survive or whatever, or even if I don't want to just make it across the border somewhere. You know,
You gonna have in the mind, so.
what's that?
I was just gonna say, during this election period, some white woman and a white man came to this house twice and asked us, does the girl live here?
Doctor.
They asked, did I live here? And I never had that. I mean, has anybody had somebody walk up to your door and say,
call your name
do Miss Troy live here?
Well,
Or
here
do
you go
Phil
again.
Smith
That's
live
trying to
here?
stand up and be
I told him
down.
no.
They want to know where you are.
I told him no.
Yeah, she
She don't live here.
right?
You know where you are.
before the
She
election,
ain't here.
she came to my house. I had calls. I wish there was some way that you can sue those people who called it. They called me
Yeah.
6 or 7 times a day. I'm glad I had my caller ID on, and I would go and look at who's calling. You know, every day for 2
Well, these days,
whole
that
weeks
is
at
the
night.
safeguard is the answering machine and screening the calls.
Yeah.
You know, because it's crazy. You know, so yeah, that's a part of it. Yeah. Give me some questions.
In other areas, I saw that they had people walking down the street
Mm-hmm.
in the hood.
In my
Asking people,
Yeah.
do you live here?
Young folks.
Do you live here? I mean, they going
And
door
white
to
folks,
door.
all the
Yeah.
Yeah,
white
white
Here
folks.
it is. They got a census going on,
Yeah.
unofficial.
This is during election time.
That's what I'm saying.
This is going on out of the
Ah.
There you go. That's what it is. It's all about the draft. It's all about the draft.
I was working
So
out
how
there.
can somebody protect themselves, like if they got a child, that they saying that they're gonna draft, what kind of protection can they do to stop that from happening?
Can't go.
Well, it's got to be. It's
Some people say go to Canada.
It's well, so they don't know. Canada closed their borders on November 3rd.
Yeah,
The day after
They close
Yeah.
their door.
yeah.
the day after Bush won, they closed their borders.
What?
Canada did.
Not allowing people
You're not
to
leaving
Yeah.
or going out.
Right.
Not leaving.
What?
You
What
can't. You
about if you
can't.
go up there, like say you go up there to gamble?
They let you go there.
But why?
That's
Why they do that?
Huh?
Homeland Security.
If you illegal then if you go up there, in your state. But you know.
Oh, okay.
So they got that, but they closed their borders as far as you going in there. It's a certain way you got to go up in there. And all right,
So there's no way they can do it here and say, well, hey, that they slew-footed or.
In Mexico, you can't go there no more because they've been sold out.
right?
You know what I'm saying? So I think that be honest with you, I think that they're not going to get a chance to get off this last flurry of what they're trying to do. I think they're running scared. Well, I know they're running scared. Or let's put it this way, you're just going to have to turn to something spiritual.
But,
Is there a part where the ancestors or extraterrestrials play in a stoppage that you could talk about?
It's just that, the extraterrestrial invasion is coming out of us. The extraterrestrial invasion is
Gotta stoop down.
spiritual. It's not physical. And that means if it's spiritual, that means it can come through the host of a human body. So it's us.
Your own time, Bobby, your own time.
You see, we are the ones. We are the ones. We are the ones on when this whole thing is talking about. And the only reason why they would even attempt to even try to wipe us out is because their hands are forced. They have no alternatives. But then again, on the other hand, the good part about that is this. Now, I explained that the day after the election, that in Atlanta, black people cried the blues so bad that Kerry didn't win until the sun didn't come out for 2 days. Now, that was dead folks. Now, Farrakhan said something years ago at the Power Tour at Madison Square Garden in 1985, where he said, do you really want your slave to go to war with you? When he said that, I said, this man is crazy. Because I just couldn't conceive of it. But now I understand what he was saying. He said, because if your slave went to war with you, he said, we will win. Now, The only thing that's retarding this thing a little bit here is we are the one that's got to drive it through the nucleus. But can you imagine if the masses was to wake up?
Yeah.
Overnight.
Awesome.
Now, their hands are forced now because in order for them to put this mayhem, means that going to be more people in the masses that'll wake up.
Check.
And if those ones wake up, man, this shit can happen overnight. Can you imagine having thousands of people that done shook the cobwebs off? And saying, look, we got to even put Jesus on the back burner because our ass. The Bible is the ultimate religion, as they say in the movie X-Files movie. The Bible is the ultimate form of theology. So they caught between a catch-22 because they can't agitate too much. They could wake up the dead black folks. And if you wake them up, we talk about some shit happening overnight. If half the stuff that's going on now on a cataclysmic level and a cosmic level is coming based on our consciousness and we don't know it yet, can you imagine what would happen if you woke up those? So they're in a real hot... You see, they've been playing around with this thing, but they've been playing around with this thing with black people being asleep.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Now, what can you say if these black people say, oh, wait a minute, hold on, I got to go to war?
Yeah.
And the troops is marching in? All of a sudden, Jesus becomes irrelevant.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? You got instant consciousness and this shit would be over. Because what we're still talking about here is his guns, his bombs, everything he got is based on some type of charge that's conducive to this atmosphere. But if the atmosphere changes based on somebody's consciousness change, guns and bombs and all that stuff won't work. Let me give you an example right now of what's happening. I know a group of people that made a certain amount of money in the 70s and in the 80s and in a certain part of the 90s. And then all of a sudden, the methodology and what they made the money don't work no more. They can't seem to make it work. To make the money that they used to make before. And they said, man, my shit used to be liquid. It used to flow. But what they didn't realize what had happened is their spiritual level or their conscious level went to another plateau. And they had to learn what is conducive to the plateau that their energy is residing in now, but they're going with an old methodology on a plateau that they've already left. And they ain't figured it out yet on what it is that they need to do, you know what I'm saying, to make this money because they're not conscious that they have elevated to a certain level and a certain atmosphere, a certain ecology, a new paradigm. So they still are dealing with the old methodology and it's, you see what I'm saying? But that's in another dimension. You see what I'm saying? And that's why, you know, same thing with relationships. Same things with relationships. The first thing the person starts doing is when they get in a relationship and the relationship changes, the first thing they start doing is dwelling on, well, you don't do this anymore, and you don't do that anymore. And what they don't realize is you did that based on that zone or that particular dimension or that phase of that journey in which you was in, but it is a journey. And this relationship is unfolding. It's unfolding to another level, and you got to find out whatever it is on this level that you're supposed to deal with at that time to still be cohesive and be together. And they still looking at the past, and you don't do this, you don't do that. You don't supposed to do that when you first met. You understand what I'm saying? So so this is what it is we don't understand certain things. Whereas now I say, because I've learned, even in this new relationship I'm in, I'm like, well, you know, I'm not going to put no type of titles on this thing. It's always unfolding. And if I know that if it's always in a process and always in progress, I don't need to sit around and go, well, is this thing dead? No, it's going to another level.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So it's going to another level. And you got to find out what is the benefits or what is the sinners of prosperity, or what is the mechanism in that level to make this thing work on that, on that realm. And so I think that has a lot to do with it, that we are constantly, the earth is constantly changing. If your skin cells, you got certain wrinkles and certain things that you don't have, although we're not like white folks, we still look different than what we looked 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So how the hell you think that your relationship or whatever it's supposed to be is supposed to be how it was before? Nothing changes. Nothing stays stays the same. Not on this realm, because we're stuck in a realm of series of illusions. And a series of illusions. So going back, it depends on what cycle you're in on just about everything. Deal with it.
So are you saying that in relationships, like you're talking about male and female,
Yeah.
that it's okay if things aren't going on a smooth thing? You know how everybody,
A lot of times the friction is because you need to find out what it is. See, there's certain things. If you look in these, especially the fairy tales, there's a book, the Queen of Nana, the Queen of Heaven. It's a book called Nana, the Queen of Heaven. And there's the courtship phase. There's the courtship phase. There's the marriage phase. You see what I'm saying? And then there's after the marriage phase, there is the principality stage, a phase of what office you take, what role. So there's different phases in this thing. You see what I'm saying? There's different phases, and we tend to judge things based on change as if change is not good. You see what I'm saying? That you must understand down here, you never gonna have that kind of relationship where it doesn't change. The only time you have a relationship where it doesn't change is a form of possession. Where you got somebody that's obsessed with another person, and they are failing to look and see the signs of change, and it don't matter what that person does, this person is obsessed, and that really that's a deficiency. You see what I'm saying? Everything has to change, and I think a lot of times, you know what I'm saying? So I think that has a lot to do with it. You're gonna have to find out whatever it is, and remember now we're in a society. And it's a young society in the aspect of the people who actually run the society are new at being human. Immigrant humans. They don't, even if you say the white man this and the white man that, no, the white man, a lot of times, he's still trying to figure out what it is. Just to be human. Because he's new on the scale. And on the scene. You see, and a lot of times we be going by what he does and stuff, and he simply don't know. We know that even in medicine. And 90% of the time when you go in that hospital, they still trying to figure out what to do.
They're practicing.
And they're practicing, and they've been telling you that I got it, and they don't have it. Give me an example. Sister called me up on the other day, and she was trying to find some doctor. Because she woke up and her heart was racing, palpitating. And she was all scared. She ran to the doctor. And the doctor, they couldn't find nothing wrong with her. I said, don't you know anytime that cracker can't find nothing wrong with you, that what is going on is not a physical thing, it's something spiritual. And I told her, I said, you was transforming. And based on the book, Lillian Silverman's book, Kundalini of Depths, the way your heart gives a certain pulsation, a certain rhythmic beat to go to a certain level of acceleration of consciousness, acceleration of the cells going to new transformation or mutations. And so whatever was going on with her, she had been into consciousness about 10, 12 years, and as a result, the body has to line up with the consciousness. And so the heart was regulating the hormones. And the melanin, there's a book called Tutankhamun Prophecy, where they talk about how even the sun regulates a certain amount of hormones on whether your melanin gets to a certain level or whatever. And it can also, the sun can actually change, and the polarities can go to another civilization, and your hormones in your body have gone dead, and then your civilization falls. This is what happened to the ancient Egyptians. The sun started shining someplace else and they're regulating the hormones on some other culture. And that culture, the shit just slowed down. After a while, they went dormant and the whole shit fell. The whole thing fell. And so I told her, I said, look, they ain't gonna find nothing wrong. She said, well, it's true, the doctors couldn't find nothing wrong. I said, no, they're not gonna find nothing wrong because it's something on another level. It's something on a whole nother level. And that is taking place. And you still looking at this thing from a physical structure. From a physical structure. So that's the thing. What's that, brother?
Yes, sir. Peace be with you. Just speak on the, I don't know if you're familiar with Melanin Soulmate.
Yeah.
And speak on the rituals of the initiation of becoming a man and also his views on the gatekeepers. And could you tell us something about shamans with First Nation people?
Okay. Whatever the rituals were that his family and all those particular people, whatever it is that they deal with, you got to understand one thing. The first thing is that it is, whatever that was for a certain time cycle. That's why we don't have it. And in so many words, a lot of the magic and stuff that those families had, and although the stuff does work, we're in a new time cycle that you can make up your own stuff based on whatever you make up. That's how the magic is, and they ain't letting you know that yet. Now he talks about the gatekeepers and the aspect of the homosexuality, or just say gay. And when you first hear this, you go, oh man, that's some bullshit. But then again, on the other hand, if you just study the history of us just being in this country, some of the people that was key in our revolution and liberation was gay or bisexual. So this means we need to look real close into this type of thing and say, because we're not talking about religion here. Religion, tells you all this. We're not into this right and wrong and do and don't. Because we don't know what a motherfucker do in their bedroom. It's so personal. So really, it's really a stupid question for you to try to regulate what a person do in private.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? When you really look at this type of thing, when you really look at this type of thing, and I had to really look at these things, because what we're dealing with now, we're dealing with this goddess, Venus, which is a god of the heart chakra. So they don't deal on morality and these social structures. They deal on what motherfucker got the light. And it's interesting here because there's people like, and I say, let me think about this, because it was Kwame Ture said that the white gays, because everything is political with them, because they're trying to get a political structure. Sure. They came to him and said, we want you to head up the gay thing, because some of our people getting killed with the gay bashing. He said, well, I can't do that. He said, why? He said, because that's not my culture. They said, what do you mean by that? He said, look, we knew that James Baldwin was gay. But he was helping us in the struggle.
Right.
And nobody tripped, because when the shit came down, black people was humane enough to go say, look, does that shit really matter? You see what I'm saying? Now, if you get into this religion, that's mind control.
Yeah.
You dealing with a doctrine that somebody put, you know what I'm saying? He said, so that ain't our thing. He said, we don't have no problem like that. You see what I'm saying? We went now, and I said, well, that's interesting. James Baldwin.
Byron Rustin.
Then Byron Rustin. Here's a man who basically was the architect of the whole March on Washington. Not only that, people don't understand the role he played. He had to train Martin Luther King, all the same people. He had to train them on how to go into Mississippi and Alabama and not get killed. Because this so-called gay person did it 10 years and 15 years before, in the 40s, when it was unheard of. This was before they even killed Emmett Till. He was going down into Mississippi and Alabama doing protests, and he had to show them how to go in. This is the man who taught Martin Luther King and them how to go into Alabama, Mississippi, and not get their ass killed. And he's a gay man. So you got to look at that and say, well, man, what the spirit is saying about this. The spirit is saying, look, this shit here is not about what a person is doing physically. It's about who got the light. So in the Africans, they was talking about the gatekeepers. The gatekeepers, they say, is supposed to be bisexual. And what Maladoma Tomei is saying, and all, it's also in the Voodoo Gnostic workbook. It costs about $800, about $400, $500. Get it off the internet now, or you can order it. The Voodoo Gnostic workbook. The gatekeepers, and I'm heterosexual. The gatekeepers, they were saying, was people, because them having the bisexual nature, they were able to see things from another perspective. You see what I'm saying? And so, now, coming from religious training and all this other shit like this and all, yes, you can find a lot of things to say, I ain't with all that kind of shit, but when you look on the spirit realm, and on this realm where they're talking about this new goddess, where it ain't based on what you do physically, and how you, it's based on what your heart is. Then you got to understand that when they talk about that, they're talking about there's a reason why they got them as a certain amount of gatekeepers. And so he talks about those type of things, and I think it's got something to do with a certain mind and energy. And the reason why I say that is this here. You always got to look at what a woman would do. Not what a woman is trained, but what a woman would do. Why is it that the women, some of their best friends was gay? They ain't had no problem hanging out with no gay man. Now with us, it's a social thing or whatever type thing here and all this kind of thing here. But the point I'm trying to make here is, in the spirit realm, you see what I'm saying? They don't look on, they look at just light. And what light is awakened. So if you get into judging, making judgments on people, it's just like in the movie, and the reason why I say that is this here. It's just like in the movie Star Wars, when they told him he wanted him to go, Luke Skywalker, to meet Yoda, the Jedi Master. And when Yoda came, he was a little old, short little thing, living a shithole, eating stew. And he judged him at first, and didn't know this was the Jedi Master they were looking at. And that's the way the spirit realm does. And there's a reason why they will send somebody in your path that is not the conventional way of what you think the spirit is, because the simple fact is they're trying to get you to look beyond the physical or the apparent. So the gatekeeper thing is on that particular level and all. And they talk about this, and they talk about this in Maladoma Tomei's thing. They talk about it in a lot of African cultures, as well as like I say, the Voodoo Gnostic workbook by Michael Bertio or something like that. Voodoo Gnostic workbook. They talk about the whole gatekeeper thing. So that's one particular aspect. But now, as far as the rituals that he's talking about, Maladoma Tomei. And at this particular time, nothing is lost. At this particular time, most of the rituals that you can make up yourself. There's a book called Magic Made Easy by Patricia Telesco. Tell everybody to get it. Just buy the book Magic Made Easy by Patricia Telesco. T-E-L-E-S-C-O. Telesco. And you just have the basic function of how magic works. But the thing about it is you go to those bookstores, it's full of these magic books. None of that shit works. That's why they put them in all the Barnes and Nobles and Borders and all this thing here.
Because they don't work.
Because they don't work. The only thing you got to do is look at the stuff on the basic way how a spell is, and guess what? Make up something. Because when you make up something, like Dr. Devil Bless said, if it's not real, you wouldn't be able to perceive it. And with us, a lot of times, we don't have confidence. We think because it's coming out of our head, it can't be legitimate. But what's coming out, whether it's coming out of our head, is the backdrop and what white people are going crazy over now. We were just talking about how the blues is so simple to us, but white people say the shit is genius.
Yeah.
So therefore, you got to have confidence and say, well, just make up something. And when you make up something, you make it your own. This is like when you do the altar. People tell you how to make an altar. No, that's some African way or some way of somebody 1,000 years ago to see how to make an altar. You know how I make my altar? I make my altar based on what I like. So I did an altar to Lakshmi. Her color is gold. So the first thing I did is I went to the store and bought her a pair of gold high heel shoes. I walked past the shoes, and the shoes were so, the shoes I got I saw was so sexy. I said, oh shit. And the maid I'm with, I said, damn, too bad it's cold now. I like these sandals. I'd buy these from her. And she said, hell, nigga, buy the shit for me. So I bought her a pair of high heel shoes. Then I got real funky. I told my girl, when we was getting ready to get busy, I said, now you put these things on and we gonna make love and charge these babies up. And I made love and then put them on the damn altar. So now, when I got in touch with the sister Kimberly, and we was talking, and Lakshmi came through and said, she said, I'm very pleased with my altar. Then I asked, I said, how you like the shoe, bitch? She said, that was nice. So my point here is what comes out of your head because you are holding the power.
Yes.
Okay.
You see, so some people go, am I doing this right? And I put this on, no. How do you like it? You the God.
Yes.
What do you like? Put what you like on there. You know, you might like Oreo cookies. Well, goddamn it, put Oreo cookies on there. Don't put what you think they might like. Put what you like. And that charges it, the altar, and it activates. So in the ritual, you say, oh, I'm going to do this. Don't second guess it, just do it, because you like the way the motherfucker sounds.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's how the magic, you can reactivate all of those rituals that you can do. White folks can't do it because they ain't holding the power, but you can do it because you the God that's coming back. And all you doing is reactivating your shit for your own energy. Because all the ritual is doing is taking your energy and manifesting it in this physical world. And stuff like that. So that's the thing about the Melanin on the soulmate. Those families are holding the old stuff, and we keep thinking that we got to go and deal with them, and we don't. You see what I'm saying? Because half that stuff won't work for us. You see, this is the new eon stuff, and the white folks is looking for the breakthroughs on this, but they white. And they ain't holding the keys. We the one that's running this. You know, yeah, what's that?
Yeah, I just wanted to tell you that during election time, they had 11 cities that was dealing with gay marriage. And gay marriage should be between a man and a woman. But see, they didn't do anything to the gays. What they did is they messed up the common law, man and woman. They're not able to, you know, and see, they didn't look at that aspect.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They messed themselves up. And a lot of them realizing that now, you know, because I'm in the trenches. I see people all the time. They like, this is really messed up.
Yeah.
You know, that tax break they got his head of house is gone now.
Yeah,
we ain't never had nothing.
Right,
It ain't
exactly.
about us having nothing.
And so like the common law thing, that really affects the black woman and cuts that whole thing out and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying?
There you go.
Or something like that. No, you know, so yeah. So let's put it this way. Anything they do is always for a form of stopping something that have a greater aspect to it, just like polygamy. They can't take people governing themselves, whereas you got a small community, because their whole thing is based on one man, one woman, one vote. So they can't take you breaking the rules and making you having your own tribe, your own nation, because that's a small city. And they can't, their laws are not set up to govern that. It's set up to govern one man, one woman, one vote. You see what I'm saying? So therefore the capitalistic system can't take polygamy or polyandry or whatever you want to call it. You see, it's got to be a certain specific way or it breaks down these systems.
That got to be their way.
It's got to be their way and stuff like that, because they designed it for a certain aspect of slavery. All it is slavery. You know, most people's lives psychologically is predetermined to them based on the blueprint that's given to them. You know, grow up, go to college, or if you don't go to college, get a trade. If you don't do that, get a good job, get married, have children, die.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? You know, so it's and what about a person say, I don't want to do none of that? You see what I'm saying? What law says that a billion people got to do the same thing? But then again, if you look at colony of ants and bees and stuff like that, that's drone. Those are things of that's stuff that people do that have instinct that don't necessarily have brains. So my point here is that we were all supposed to do the same thing. What's the use of having brains? What's the use of having creativity? We could all just do the same thing. But apparently when a person tells you that you need to be the same way, obviously because it's a form of control. They're trying to keep people in a certain amount of slavery. And so people doing shit different a lot of time breaks up the slavery. You see what I'm saying? So despite what people, let's take the gay marriage thing. Now I'm looking at it on a metaphysical level, I'm looking at it on outside of the matrix as far as mind control. And although you might not agree with it and you might think it's appalling or whatever, for the mere fact that every now and then, how rigid the rules, somebody threw the monkey wrench in there and some other shit happened. The government go, oh no, see, I'm heterosexual, but I'm looking at this thing on how the government is. They be like, oh shit, this is changing the rules. You see? That's why they say we got to be conservative. You see what I'm saying? Because we got to keep this certain form of slavery. You see what I'm saying? And we can't inspire nobody to be different. You see what I'm saying? You see,
Just like
so
that church thing. That's a whole, you know.
Right. Then you know we can't break outside of the moralism and stuff, because those are laws of slavery. So on one hand you look at some stuff, but you got to look at why they really do things. They ain't doing stuff because they're truly moralistic. Because believe it or not, most of those people that's writing these laws is gay.
Yeah, that's true.
Governor.
Okay, I forgot about that one.
You see? So you got to ask yourself, why would they negate their own freedom for others? Because the simple fact, it's about control.
Right. Yeah.
It's about control. You see what I'm saying? Because ultimately, be honest with you, ultimately, when you really break this thing down, you don't know what a motherfucker's doing in the bedroom. It's really a person that's a mute point. Now that's a person that's automatically come out and announce to the world. But that's not half the race. Most people, you see what I'm saying, you don't know what they do. So the simple fact is, for the mere fact it's that way, and they want to do something in the open, is because they're trying to stop something, because they don't want people to look up and say, hey, something different. I don't care what it is. It can't be nothing different. You see what I'm saying? It's got to be the same thing. You see. So all that's a form of mind control. In mind control, you can't have, you got to have the same thing going on all the time. You see what I'm saying? The same thing going on all the time. I know this in fact, but I know this a fact about people. Right now, I guarantee you right now, half the black people can't seem, this the ones that's victims to this society as far as the jail, the drugs, or whatever type thing. Do yourself a thing. Go and see what their diet is. And I'm not talking about whether it's good or bad. I know some people that never like to try anything new.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They've only,
Yeah.
like one sister, I said, what's your favorite meal? She said, soul food. I'm like, you in your 40s. That's a given. Now I like soul food too, but I'm trying to aspire to give me something exotic. Not something I've been having all my life. I know some people. This sister, I cooked a meal for her. And she was picking on in it and stuff like that and all. And I was looking, I say, I can see right now you ain't never really ate nothing. I said, what's your favorite meal? I eat soul food. Goddamn, you 45 now. Don't you think you need to try something new? So you got some people, they'll never come outside of their environment.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So you can't get him, you see what I'm saying, some mango chicken. Because they got a certain programming. And so the government can come in and they can use these particular ones because they got a certain program, because the government can dictate what they're going to do, and they set up traps for them and stuff. So so that's another part of things also. What's that?
And that reminds me of a lot of these so-called Christians. I try to tell them about Islam or Buddhism or something. They just want to talk Christianity. I'm like, you're no different than somebody that grew up in the projects all their lives and never been out to the suburbs or down.
Exactly. It's the same thing. Look, I got a friend I went to college with. He go to a restaurant. Now, he's fancy now. He's a college graduate. He goes to Why? I mean, we both went to college. We both went to school together. And he go to the restaurant. He go to all the top restaurants, but he always order the chicken, whatever chicken they having in that restaurant. That's what he order. I said, there's some fish over here. Well, I don't eat fish. Why? Because my mama and them didn't eat fish. Damn. You been out of high school for 20-something years, nigga. You know, and everywhere he goes, it's the same thing. He'll eat the chicken, he'll eat the burger, or whatever type thing. He not going to try nothing exotic. At all, you know what I'm saying? And I say, you know, well, my mama and them didn't eat that. I'm like, his next door neighbor lives 2 miles away from him. They live in a rural area. I'm like, so your mama and them was farmers. That's not the criteria. Hell, you up here in a big restaurant in Atlanta now. You know what I'm saying? But my point here is that, and I said I could tell, but by his eating habits, not willingness to try nothing new, I could tell that he gonna be stuck.
And that's the way
and what it is.
Christianity is. They're afraid that they're going to have to learn something new. And
right. It's the same thing. They got to deprogram their mind, and you deprogram their mind by trying something new, coming out of the box. And they don't like change.
That's part of the plan that they have here, though. It's a limited social circle.
I had this beautician tell me, because I was trying to tell about Egypt, and she was like, I know about all that. She said, but I'd rather just take Jesus and believe in that rather than take a chance on something else. Because I got a better chance of going to heaven with Jesus than, you know, so.
It's the same thing. I can tell right now. I can tell right now. The same sister who wouldn't eat nothing but soul food. I can even tell based on the music. I'm like, look, come on now. Okay, I know you grew up on the classics. I say, but try something different. I don't even damn try some white boy shit. Like they say, whatever it is, because the white boy stuff is based on our stuff. Yeah. So it's not like it's far behind. It's not like they created a new genre.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know, get into something. You know what I'm saying? Just like the guy said about, you know, like some of the jazz things, say, you know, this thing, and because I got a friend, he listened to all the smooth jazz, all of the Boney James, and all of the stuff like this. And I said, you know, he said, well, I don't like the old stuff. And I'm like, look, man, it's not hard to get, man. You just got to open up your minds. It's not going to come to you. You got to come to it, like what's his name said, Wynton Marsalis. And so what you're doing is you're breaking out of the paradigm. I know this happened because one of the brothers heard me talk about Ella Fitzgerald. Now, Ella Fitzgerald was before my time.
Right.
But I got into her because, you know what I'm saying? You know, and I know it can happen. This brother, he was listening to rap. He went and got some Ella Fitzgerald and started getting this. His brother was 18. Yeah. And started working that in with his rap routine. Saying, you know, these are the blueprints, so it's not that far removed. Everything got elements of the basis, you know. But I'm just trying to say, here goes again. You can tell some people and all, they stuck. You know what I'm saying? We was listening to all this music and stuff, and she heard Anita Baker, then she jumped all up. I'm like, well, everybody listen to Anita Baker and stuff like that. It ain't hard with that. I mean, but you know, I played 5 or 6 other people that Anita Baker was copying her shit from. Nancy Wilson or whatever, and you know, but this is the mindset now. So our people are trapped because they're afraid to come outside of that box.
They stuck in 48 though. That's, you know.
Yeah. You know. So you know, afraid to come out of that box. It's good enough for my parents, but your parent was an idiot.
Yeah, my mother, my grandma. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
Somebody else told
my mother.
Yeah, your grandmama didn't even stick around. Her body is even gone now. Yeah. She's not even, you know. So even your grandmama changed the state that she was in. Damn, she is more progressive than you. She has changed her state that she's in. She's probably your child now, or somebody in some other place. She's probably the person that you don't want to listen to. That's how it works. You know, so it's just, you know, it's the same psychological conditioning. and all. You see what I'm saying? And we all know, because we know when it comes to the consciousness, we are victims of being different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thinking different.
Man.
You see what I'm saying? So that's what time it is. Give me some questions.
I
What's
got
that?
one. It was about what you had mentioned as far as the gay marriages, and then you mentioned something about polygamy. And this is just always just the hot topic, you know. My question was, it's a comment. I was having a conversation at the library with this quote-unquote conscious brother, and I was telling him that I didn't think that there was anything wrong with polygamy. And he said, well, he just had a big fit, and I was just so wrong, and, you know, somebody done brainwashed me, and this and that and the other, and it was wrong for me to think something like that. And I told him my reasons is because I feel as though there's an unbalance between the men and the women. And he just totally debuted that, and he said, you know what, we're going to go on the census and look in D.C. and see the population between the male and female, and it's the same, you know. He said it ain't that far off. And we went on and I showed him, and he saw that there was more females than men, but that still didn't negate his point. So my question is that, like in society, it's obvious to me, you know, that the females outnumber the males, you know. But even when you explain that to conscious, quote-unquote, people, it's like they want to refuse to admit that, and they'll make up all kinds of, you know, crazy things, you know, to try to explain. And so the question I have is that, and this is like, I don't know, you may know the answer, may not know, but do you know or have an idea as to why there's that imbalance? Because it's not just with us, it's that way in nature and, you know, the creatures and animals, why there's an imbalance like that. You see what I'm saying?
Well, there's twofold. The nature thing here is that there's always been the women outlive the men, you know what I'm saying? That has something to do with biological reasons. But that would not be the discrepancy. The discrepancy would be the circumstances which men put themselves in based on culture that would ultimately kill them off.
Okay.
In this particular case with us, it's in direct dominion under this white man.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? Is the way that's a conspiracy.
Okay.
You see, to make the male member small in the population and stuff like that and all. In the population. But my point here is, with the conscious brother saying, well, look at the disparity. My point here is, who's to make these laws to say that you can't do something? For the mere fact it can be done means that in actuality, some of that should be done. For the mere fact that you can do it physically means that there wasn't supposed to be, here goes again, one methodology for all the people on the planet.
True.
You see what I'm saying? And when you really look at it and stuff, it's no different than when they would say, about I don't believe in polygamy. But then again, on the other hand, somebody said, but I don't believe in many gods. And it's like Asa Hilliard asked the people one time, this when we was first getting into the consciousness, he said, I want to ask you something. Is there something wrong with worshiping multiple deities? And they are, yeah, it is, and all that. He said, wait a minute, hold on. Let's wipe out what you was taught. If you never heard, I worship the one God and all of this, would there be something wrong with that? And they thought for a minute and go, well, if I never heard that, no, it wouldn't.
Right. Conditions.
It's based on conditions.
Exactly.
You see what I'm saying? It's based on conditions and all. You see what I'm saying? Now, dealing with the same thing when it comes to this, I'm coming with the polygamy thing. You see, first of all, the women is the one that established it. That's the first thing.
Oh, really?
Women is the one that started polygamy. They started it after the system of polyandry, which was the women had multiple husbands in the pre-dynastic era. And after the matriarchal realm fell to the patriarchal realm, and they started having a disparity between male and female based on wars, based on several things like that, based on, the man being the weaker species in the particular aspect. His constitution is not as strong as the female, and he would die off. The woman is the one that established the polygamy so that her sister could get the chance to share in the prosperity of having a mate. You see what I'm saying? So it was basically inclusive society of a communal way that a woman established, of an equality. The women is the one that established that type of that in the polygamy aspect. You see, it wasn't the males.
Oh, wow.
So, you see what I'm saying? So my point is, who's to say that that's the way it is? And the only reason why they don't have it now in this particular country is not because of moralism. Moralism is where they fool you to keep you in the laws that they want you to keep following. The reason why they don't have it because America, one man, one woman, one vote, a system of slavery cannot, if I got 5 or 6 women and we all working together and they going out with certain jobs and we feeding certain people and we doing things, then that's a small corporation.
Check.
And you see what I'm saying? And you can break down the dependency on this government.
Check.
You see what I'm saying like that now? You know what I'm saying? Right now, you know, even when you just talk about the bills all in your name and if some shit get all delinquent and stuff, you see what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? But if you had 4 or 5 people and the bill was in each other person's name, that person could pay that one bill.
That's right.
Then it wouldn't be delinquent. I wish I had one bill to pay. If you got 5 bills to pay and something go wrong and stuff, next thing you know, the Equifax and the credit people calling you. So the system is not set up for that. That's the real reason why they don't have it in this country. It has nothing to do with moralism. They didn't have it in Europe because capitalism started in Europe. Capitalism was that they went into European societies. The kings and the queens got together as a consensus. And what they did was they went all out to the countryside with armies and gunpoint and forced all the people in from the countryside to force to live in cities, and then they taxed them. And they was in cities, they built industries around this slave labor. Whereas the people who was living out in the countryside, they could farm, they could do all this kind of thing here. They was self-sufficient. And so they, to make the humans outside of self-sufficiency, they forced them into the doggone cities. Now it's one thing to have city-states and civilizations where our cities was based on we came together, but it was agricultural and all this kind of thing here. But it wasn't a forced thing where we was under the dominion of somebody, these elite group of people ruling over you to work as a worker class to make them rich. You see, this was a form of socialism where you came together and pooled your resources so everybody could have. Right. So capitalism in Europe was they forced all these people outside of their farms and stuff, forced them in the city to work for these elite people and gave them pennies and then taxed their ass.
Right.
And so if you got polygamy going on, then you break it down that system, and that's what it is. It's slavery at all costs.
Wow.
So that's what's really going on.
Can we have a break?
Yeah.
You want to take a little break or something?
Yeah.
Back
Well, how did you get to this level?
Right.
I started masturbating at an early age, and that's remember your girl Jocelyn Elders, who was the.
You gotta start.
Yeah.
She was over the. Jocelyn Elders was the woman over. She was the. She was the. Hold on a minute. Jocelyn Elders was the.
General surgeon.
General surgeon, and she said, told them that they needed to teach masturbation. And Clinton got rid of her.
They got rid of it.
What?
Yeah, they sure did. That's
Right.
right. Sure did.
Now what they were saying was that the reason why women are frigid is because they don't know their own bodies.
Right. Exactly.
They don't know their own bodies because they never experimented with themselves
That's right.
based on some indoctrination that it was wrong, and
Right.
it's not. How are you going to get to know your own body?
Right.
When you reach orgasm,
Exactly
you
right.
tune into God to have a peace with God.
And not only that, and when you go to sex therapists, the first thing they're going to tell you to get you to a certain level is you're going to have to masturbate. That's going to be the key. So if masturbation is the medicine to try to understand how to reach orgasm, why is it bad if that is the methodology? You see what I'm saying? So yeah, that's one of the problems. And 60% of most women in this country never reach orgasm. They say, first of all, 60% of most women are frigid because males not being trained
Yeah.
because how to have sex. Like take for instance, we're trained at an early age to go for the ejaculation. So we never train how to prolong the ejaculation for a length amount of time that it could be satisfying to the woman.
That female, that's right.
So as a result, you get a society that's based on premature ejaculation. And as a result, the woman becomes frigid because her system takes a little longer to come to the orgasm. Not unless she is, not unless she's trained herself to be multiply orgasmic or whatever type thing. And that's the only way you can do that a lot of times is through masturbation.
Well, see, that's why the oral sex came into a big play with the men, and that was what you just said right there. That the men don't, they want to jump into it and they don't have time for the woman, you know, to experience. But with the oral sex now, it's kind of prolonged that.
And that's a factor. That's a factor. But also my point here goes again. We're still talking about being victims of being in a society of a young culture, which is the white man, who just now learning stuff. I mean, and he didn't even, this man's sex was almost non-existent. Something in the dark until the Kensington, what's that?
Yes.
The Kensington reports of the 1950s. They just started learning about sex in the 1950s. Hell, half the human civilization was over.
Back to orgasm. Orgasm, at my age, my experience, has made me tune into the spiritual realms that I have to go into.
Well,
it helped me to control.
Well, it's at another level past 40. Because what happens is
male or female?
Female.
Female.
Yeah. Well, most males don't know what our orgasm is. Ejaculation is not orgasm.
Holding it in is.
Yeah, ejaculation is not orgasm. About a year into not ejaculating, males start having orgasms.
Holding it in.
I know how to have an orgasm now. And but an ejaculation is something totally different. The orgasm, when you talk about when you talk about women, it enhances after 40. Why? It has something to do with you sharing some of the energy with childbearing age.
Yes.
And after 40, it goes to another level. You see what I'm saying? So and so it enhances, you know, after 40. So that has some aspect to do with it also, on that particular level. But now as far as the males, there's a book, Montauk Chia got a book called How to Make the Multiple Orgasmic Man. And basically after a while, if you can train yourself not to come, and basically you can also do this too. See, one thing about sex don't have to be long. It can be good without necessarily being long.
That's right.
So there's a point where a man can get to the point, and right before he orgasm, he just stop. He can always come back. And you, after a while, you will build up, your body will start, what happens, it will stop it will stop being used to orgasm, and after a while, ejaculation, excuse me, after a while you can start having orgasm, which is spasms and all. Now the difference between that is, some women go, I can't have sex with a man and not become attached. That's because you are pulling in the energies. The woman pulls in energy, so you have a part of that person's energy in essence within you. Whereas most men ejaculating, they pulling out. They're pushing whatever their essence out. So they can bust a nut, that separates them, and they can get up and go on about their business. And women never knew, how can you screw all these women and never become attached? That's because they have given away their essence instead of retaining the essence.
There's a movie called Bliss.
Bliss.
Yeah.
So when they
Hell of a movie, Bliss.
Okay,
and all.
right. But when they obtain it, go ahead.
So what happens here is the worst thing is once they start retaining it, the energy, and start having the orgasms, then the whole aspect of becoming closer and embracing, after sex, that comes into play. So you have a man that will embrace a woman before sex, and then after sex he don't want nothing to do with her. That's because he's given away his energy. It's gone. He pushed it out. Whereas if you retain it, the sex is extended even beyond the intercourse.
Is that dealing with tantra?
That's dealing with the whole tantra thing, yeah.
And so
Even
when a man and woman both reach tantrums, so what do that do? I know that I've experienced it. The bliss is so.
there's a bliss, but also too, ultimately, it's also what happens here is the connection you have start morphing together. Your two souls morph together.
Yeah.
Then you start thinking. She'll think one thought, and you will say the thought. You start thinking at the same time, and it comes to a form of telepathy, and you start morphing together as one entity, one unit, and stuff also too. And so the consciousness start going to a whole nother level too, and going to a whole nother level. Yeah.
It's also like when the man's penis is in the woman's vagina for a period of time, he also going to different realms because she taking him there.
Well, not only that too, what's happening is this here. See what happens is here. The vagina is a black hole. It sucks in.
Right.
Now the only way the man is able to be at one with that, if he learns how to retain long enough, then what happens is his penis turns into a vagina and it starts sucking in the energy. So it starts sucking in the energy. And this is the one way he can be at one with woman. You see what I'm saying? Because he has gone past the part, you see what I'm saying, on the level of being being something that is being used for energy. He starts gaining the energy too, also too. So then the symbiotic nature starts to happen also too, yeah. But like I said again, we are victims of being in a society that even if you just take the racism out and just say, if everybody got along, we would still be inadequate because the white man certainly don't know. He is just now he knows now. You see what I'm saying? Some of them know now based on they exposed to more things in the world, especially the ancient world and stuff like that. So they know now. There's a great deal of them know more than we do. So the roles have been reversed. But then again, it's the European culture as a whole. This is new to them. You see what I'm saying? So that has some. Give me some questions. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's just a comment that, because children usually know, and we know as children some of the things that they were teaching us in school. And I'm looking at these teachers like what's wrong with them? Don't everybody know that? But then they get to the point where they talk to you so much, they teach you so much, give you so much books that you don't know where you started at from the get-go. You just, I've been trained so much on the job where when I came in, I knew the job just because it made sense. But after you trained me, I didn't know anything.
That's true.
Yeah, that's all their certification and stuff like that. Also, you got to understand that they learn different than us. And basically, they whatever it is, they teach us backwards. Like take for instance, I never took geometry in high school, college, or nothing like that. But I was in this Dr. Ben Mystery system and went to DC, and the guy said, show me where such and such point is. And I looked on the board and pointed right to it. He said, that's exactly right. Now what I did is I got it based on my perception of where it was, you see what I'm saying, what was innate. And he explained the white boy system is backwards. They teach you geometry and all that based on, they don't start with taking the visual aspect. They start by teaching you backwards by giving you all these problems and the stuff literal, as far as written. and all the mathematical things, and then you get confused. And whereas you supposed to learn it visual and then break it down mathematically.
Right.
They got it backwards. They're breaking it down mathematically, and the visual is secondary and stuff like that. So it's all backwards. So it's trained on another brain set. It's trained from the left brain.
Oh.
You see, so just saying, so what we're talking about here is still being a left brain prisoner. Our training is backwards. You know, our training is backwards. That's why when a lot of black people, after they come out of the indoctrination of a college education, and although I went for 8 years, I was in the arts, so I was spared. They can't get certain things that they hear coming from the way a black person will say it because they're not trained to get it that way. It has to come in the way the white man says it has to come because they trained that way.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? They train that way, you know. And that's the way it is. And I remember there was a brother who was getting a PhD, and he's like, man, he said, spiritually, I know what you're saying is right. And he said, but I just can't get it.
Right.
Now, he was honest enough to know his spirit was saying, yo, this stuff here is right. He said, but he was all trained into, he could get all the revolutionary, political, social revolutionary, and all this type of stuff. Because he was conscious. But he was into that thing and all. He's getting his PhD in the revolutionary, you know, this type of thing and all, in the culturalist and all. And I say, look, what you got to do, man, is you got to reverse the polarity. Everything that you think is crazy, bizarre, weird, horrific, tell yourself for a month that that is true. And everything that you think is logical, rational, or whatever based on that, say that that's garbage. And I say, you can reverse the polarities.